SUV up there is causing a real circus, huh?
Yeah, Old Dominion there took forever to pass that. Little white car, and then I had to slow down behind him. And now that we're going uphill, my truck, I got a little. She don't pull very well up the hills.
Well, brother, I got no mouse engine. I got almost 600 horse and my long nose, and I'm telling you what, you pull good. You know how to dime your hills because you haven't lost a beat.
Yeah, no, that Old Dominion slowed me down right there near the bottom of the hill.
Happens to the best of it.
Now this is just a little 400 horse. Volvo D12 engine.
Sometimes I wish I had your vehicle, man. My fuel mileage is killing me.
I get 5 miles to the gallon.
Oh man. Okay, maybe not your engine, maybe somebody else's.
Now back in the day, she used to get right around 7.2 to 7.4, but I'm coming up on 1.5 million miles here in the truck now.
Yikes! Is it all blow by causing that, or what?
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of oil seepage into my turbo, into my exhaust, out of the head. So she's coming due on needing the head redone, and I figure if I'm gonna pull that head off and redo the head, I might as well do the in-frame at that time too. So, but almost everything in the engine compartment's original. Turbo. I've replaced the air compressor. I replaced the water pump. I've replaced the AC condenser and compressor, and I've replaced the alternator. Everything. Oh, and everything else is original.
That's not too bad, man. You're doing good on that motor. I mean, for how many miles you've gotten, that's pretty good.
Yeah, she's just gotten slower and weaker over time is all. And see, when I got this truck, my old Kenworth was leaking out of every single orifice you can imagine on that old Cummins engine. And I didn't have the money at the time to either rebuild it or buy a new one. And I was out driving around one day and I found a scrapyard and bent the frame right behind the cab. It had 20,000 miles on it. So I took it home. I bought it for $7 grand, and I took it home and I put some work into it. Switched out the frame. The frame is now almost 8 feet longer than the Volvo for that year, which is why I've got that big black box on the back there that carries my motorcycle. I built that box too, So from 20,000 miles to almost 1.5 million, that's all my own mileage.
Man, that's called running it smart.
$7,000, that's what it cost me. That's it.
That's really the truth about America these days, is if you got plenty of elbow grease and a little bit of brains and you put yourself to it and you really work hard, there's no telling where you couldn't end up. I mean, I'm living proof of it. I went from, years I'm driving, 2 years ago I bought a brand new I mean, you can end up anywhere, and paying the expenses on that truck and all, but what I'm saying is that I bought it during COVID. I got it for 40 grand less than the market was usually. And I've never been mad about this truck. I know about the depth issues. I'm no dummy. I know about regen, and I know about all those issues. You figure out a system that works for you. And I've figured out, you recycle your truck before it causes you issues. And I know what mileage to, I know when I'll sell it. I'll know. And I always have a nest egg in case something happens in advance.
Now see, I look at it like this now. You know, as long as you still have a good solid frame, you from driving that truck for 20 million miles. You just have to put the work in and the maintenance in. You know, rebuild the engine or replace the engine. Same thing with the transmission. You know, that's working frame. You're good to go.
Yep, that's absolutely true. It's kind of like the old story, though. Other than the frame, it's kind of like the guy needed an axe and he went to his neighbor to borrow it, and the neighbor said, "Well, you take good care of that in the family for 3 generations." And the guy looks at him and says, "Well, what are you talking about? It's a brand new axe. It's a brand new axe handle." And the guy goes, "Well, I alone have replaced the handle at least 5 or 6 times, and I had to replace the head just last year."
Any chance you're going to be anywhere near Missouri tomorrow?
Oh, I wish, man. No. Tulsa and then straight home, brother. I wish I could. You've been so fun to talk to. Just a joke about the axe anyhow.
No, I get that. What I'm saying is I got another. His name's Butch. He's going to be out in Springfield, Missouri tomorrow, getting ready to go to this with us this weekend, and he still drives around in an old Ford semi-truck with over 5 million miles on it.
Holy smokes. You talking about one of them old cab overs or what?
Now, it looks more like a day cab that's had an extra sleeper added on right behind it.
Oh man, that's awesome. I love those old trucks. They really are more reliable too. I've driven them too, but man, I don't know. This whole death thing drives me a little nutty, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, see, that's one of the other reasons I wasn't really willing to rebuild that old Kenworth of mine, because it was one of those first generation regen. You know, it was a 2012 Kenworth, and you know, I put 1.4 million miles on it before it started literally falling apart. And it wasn't just the engine, you know, every single cabinet, even the bed frame itself was plastic and was mounted with plastic bolts, and it all was broken and falling apart. You know, everything on that truck was coming apart. And the problem with it was, you know, the truck ran great till I hit about 480,000 miles on it. When I did that, the regen system started breaking down every 3 months like clockwork, and every time it was anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 in the shop, every time, and it would be 2 to 3 weeks every time it went, you know, that I would be without a truck. I wasn't willing to get back into that little circus. So that's why I found this one with 20,000 miles on it. $7,000. Yeah, it's a bent frame. Okay, I can fix that real quick myself. And I never looked back, because this one here is a 2006. So all it has on it for emissions is just the EGR, which, you know, I've you know.
This one that had, oh goodness, it hit 400,000 miles and that, and they just started talking numbers to me, and I went, you know what, man. A lot of money. Yeah, I did. Holy smokes. I worked landscaping, I worked oil field, and I worked truck. The thing I ever did, and the thing that was hardest on my body, the worst thing I ever did is, if you don't get out and exercise and do stuff.
Yeah. You know, people don't realize there are places in this, of a semi-truck from one end of that state, and by the time you get out of that state, you got to stop in the mirror and check everything out to make.
Buddy, for a little while I drove in the oil field, and we were going down lease roads, and I remember laughing about a lease road one time. Guy was telling me about it, and I went down it, and there were literally truck parts strewn down the lease road. You'd go a little ways and there'd be a blown tire. You go a little ways and there'd be a mud flap. You go a little ways and there'd be one of those stack bands that holds your exhaust stack on the truck. And I was like, what the heck's going on? I started paying attention and I realized as I kept driving in the oil field, I lost one of my stack bands and then I lost the mud flap on that same lease road. I mean, it doesn't take long. The shaking gets hard enough and a truck will come apart, literally come apart.
Yeah. No, it's I've had that problem too, you know. The matter of fact, my exhaust stack back there right now, I've got it instead of the normal exhaust bands that hold it to that little bar that keeps it straight up and down. I'm using I've got two at the top and two at the bottom. The regular hose clamps strapped around it right now because I was going down the road and all I had on me were the hose clamps, but my exhaust started hitting the ground and I was like, what in the world? Because I looked in my mirror and I see it hanging all the way out there on the passenger side, you know, and I'm like, holy crap.
The same thing happened with my Peterbilt. I was driving along, again, I was in the oil field and it lost its stack band and then I just heard this ding, 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 ding as I was going down the road and I looked in my rearview mirror. My exhaust stack is
Hello, Yancey.
it's rocking back and forth about 5 inches away from the truck and then smacking the side of the truck and back and forth. It just kept beating on the truck. By the time I caught it, and it was just a minute later, and it had already rubbed through the paint in the spot, starting to eat into metal. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's like right now I've got a blue hood on the truck, right? The original green hood is cut up into 6 or 7 pieces and it's stuffed inside that black box right now because I can't find any place where I can dump it off that doesn't want to charge me $600 to get rid of it because it's fiberglass, right? Well, I hit a Cougar last summer and when I hit that Cougar it shattered the hinge mounts on the front end of the hood. So if I tried to open my hood, the hood would just fall off. And so now I've got this blue hood. But see, when I hit that Cougar, within 5 miles, the hood had offset itself just enough that one edge of it was touching another section of the body, and it had literally worn like a 6-inch long gouge right through the hood.
Oh my word. Yeah, and imagine a Cougar of all things. I have never seen a road-killed Cougar in my life. I mean, that is a really rare roadkill.
Yeah, it was about 2 in the morning out on Oregon 20, about a mile east of that little town called Ventura.
Holy smokes, that's got to be one of the rarest roadkills literally in the world.
I will admit, I was pretty much flying like a bat out of you-know-what that night. And I come around that curve and there it was, and I didn't even have time to hit the brake. It was just an instant whack.
Yeah, no, that's the thing a lot of people don't get about roadkill is sometimes the people are like, well, you should have been driving more careful or whatever. I have had deer on the side of a hill clear a jump that most people don't even believe the animal could do, 15 horizontal feet, and land. 1 minute they're on the shoulder of the road way off, and the next second they're right in front of you. Cougars are the same way. I mean, all these wild animals are unbelievable how fast they can move.
Yeah. Well, a cougar can run almost 80 miles an hour, right?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I did not know that, but I do know that these animals move at unbelievable rate of speed. I've personally experienced it.
And see, when I was younger, I took a road trip from Eastern Washington out to Seattle with my grandfather. we were in his pickup. We were going up to my aunt's place that was up in Bellingham, and coming across Snoqualmie, we're minding our own business, you know, just going down the highway, and next thing you know, there was an elk that had jumped over the barrier and landed directly on top of the hood.
Surprise, surprise. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that it's almost as common to hit deer as to have deer hit you from the side or whatever, just during a dead run, and they just plow right into the side of your vehicle. It happens. I've had friends had that happen to them. We look it up on YouTube. I mean, it's all over.
I've smashed many an animal in my career. I'll tell you that. I think the worst one was actually, on my old Kenworth. It was the first year I had owned that Kenworth, and coming up out of Upper Peninsula, Michigan, coming through the National Forest there, middle of the night, I caught this little tiny white dot bounced across the front of my truck. I think 2 or 3 times I saw it bounce, and then just wham! You know, and it was a black bear. I'd hit a black bear, middle of the night, you know, and the repairs, thank God I had the insurance, but the repairs, you know, the repair bill came out a little over $38,000.
Oh yeah, those black bears are built like a brick poop house. I mean, they're low to the ground, they're heavier than all get out. I mean, black bears weigh 300 pounds. I mean, that's a no joke deal. You hit that puppy and you can total a piece of equipment. I'm glad I've never hit anything quite that solidly built personally. I've hit deer, I've hit a lot of small critters. I've been fortunate enough not to hit an elk yet. That's another really big one. And a lot of people don't realize when you're talking elk and moose, they'll oftentimes go through your windshield, especially if they get startled and jump.
Oh no. I've definitely had a problem with a moose before. And I'm telling you, when a moose is standing right next to your truck and he's on the ground and his head, the top of his head is higher than the door frame on your cab, you know that thing is massive.
Oh yeah, no, they're colossal. And me being an outdoorsman my whole life, I've always warned people, because I live in Colorado, I've always warned people, I've said, you know, everybody thinks it's the bears and the mountain lions, or cougars as you call them, or, you know, puma, whatever. Everybody thinks that it's the predators, and they are dangerous to human life, but the one thing I've learned consistently time and time again is that in North America, the most dangerous animal is the moose. The moose is the nastiest disposition. I was out fishing one day out in the creek up high in the high country, and a cow moose, I was in the valley first, and this cow moose and her calf came walking along, and they stayed about 50 yards away from me, and I knew to keep my distance. I was no dummy. I grew up a hunter and a fisherman, and I kept my distance, but there was just this little piece of water about 5 foot closer to this cow moose than where she had originally established her comfort zone. And I just took like 3 steps, and she turned and faced me and laid her ears back and took about 6 steps towards me. And that was the warning. And I promise you folks, if you're ever out in the country and you're dealing with moose or bison, they have the disposition of a demon. They want to destroy you if you come within their comfort zone. And they will. They will destroy you. And it doesn't take much. There's videos on YouTube of moose attacking pickup trucks. I mean, they have no fight or flight. It's all fight and it's all rage. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and usually you don't even really have to be inside their comfort zone, so to speak. You just have to be you just have to be downwind from them. Or no, upwind, right? They catch your scent and they'll come after you. A moose is nothing to mess with. And I've seen plenty of videos where a moose, some idiot in a semi-truck has never seen a moose before and it's standing in his way on the road. And he goes up and he blows his air horn at it, and that moose turns around and literally rips the whole front end off that semi-truck. I've actually, in one of the videos I saw, that there was a moose that actually ripped the engine out of the engine compartment on a semi-truck.
They are not little, and they are definitely hellions. I mean, they are a no-joke critter, and the power is unbelievable. And they can move so fast, too. A lot of people think that they wouldn't chase you, but I think a moose run about 40 mile an hour, 50 mile an hour. So if you think you can get away from it, I mean, you better be going interstate speed. And if you're out in the mountains, I just recommend if your audience ever takes a road trip to Colorado, Wyoming, up in the Rockies or whatever, respect the wildlife, people. I mean it. I've grown up around it. I actually have personally watched elk in Rocky Mountain National Park gore the hoods of cars. There was a whole line of cars waiting and watching, and one bull elk ran away from another bull elk, and he ran between the cars because he was frantic to get away, and the one behind was chasing him, and the car watched the first bull elk run between, and then they let off the brake and rolled forward just a foot while the second bull elk was shooting the gap right in front of their vehicle, and he slammed on the brakes, the bull elk did, and then he just dropped his whole set of antlers across the hood of their car. So, I mean, if you come out to visit Rocky Mountain, if you go up to Yellowstone or whatever, don't be that guy. Come on, people. I mean, you know, if you think you can ride the bison or whatever, he might ride you instead.
That's another animal that you don't want to mess with, is a bison or a buffalo. Both bison or buffalo, they catch your scent and they will attack you.
Yeah, I think if you look across the continents, most people think it's the predators that are attributed to most of human death. It's almost never the case. If you look at Africa, the #1 leading killer is hippopotamus, followed by, I believe, elephant. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me, but in North America, the #1 killer is moose. And just herbivores have a disposition. They know that if they're a large herbivore, they know that their best chances against a predator are to turn and fight rather than run away. So when they get intimidated, they just turn into basically a rage beast.
Hello, Charlene. Welcome to Black Wölf. We are traveling across Kansas right now, and the person that you're hearing talk is on the CB. He's in a truck right behind me. He's got a nice old purple Kenworth, and we just both happen to be going the exact same way today. His CB handle is Pee-wee. Mother Nature can be very, very vicious when she wants to be.
I was driving out 3 weeks ago, I think it was. Don't quote me on that. Through Bunker Hill, Kansas, directly ahead of us actually. And I went into a microburst storm. It was a supercell, and I thought, I'll be alright, and I was, but man, I drove into it, and don't rely on those early warning systems on the highway, because I was relying on early warning systems for tornadoes and such, and I drove into that supercell, and it had a green cloud above it, which I know sometimes means hail, and I drove into it, because I tend to be a little ballsy myself, but I drove into it, and I had to pull over because nobody could see, and the highway was blocked. And when I pulled over, I hopped on my phone, and sure enough, just a couple miles north of us was a tornado, and I never got the early warning system. All I had was Google Maps telling me there's a tornado in my weather app.
Yeah, well, that's better than, you know, several years back, it was in my early years, I was still a company driver back then, and I was going into Dallas, Texas in a semi-truck for the first time. You know, I'd been stationed down in Fort Hood, Texas when I was in the Army, so I still had friends down there, and I had a friend I hadn't seen in years. I was going to go meet up with them for lunch. You know, they had the warning system going off and the whole nine, and I'm going over there by where the old Cowboy Stadium used to be, and the news report and the weather channel and everything were saying that the tornado was about 30 miles south of where I was. And like, I don't understand why it was saying that, because just a couple minutes later, and I even got a picture of it crossing the highway right in front of me, I ran right into that tornado right out by the old Cowboy Stadium.
Yeah, that's the problem. America relies too much on technology in general. I mean, we start leaning on it, and then it drops the ball, and then we get a little protective, and then we lean on it again, and it drops the ball. Get yourself to the point where you don't need technology, or at least try not to. You know, I mean, try to get yourself to the place where, you know, you can think out of the box. I mean, this is all a house of cards. I mean, if we sneeze wrong and something happens, the shit could hit the fan so fast it's not even funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you know, growing up on a farm, you get to see a lot of dust devils all the time, right? Well, I'm coming across Arizona a few years back. I was running empty because I had just delivered a load and I was headed back to the truck stop. And I see this big dust devil, and it's a big one, you know, off the side of the road, and I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be fine. It's just a dust devil, right? About the time I got up to it, it was smack in the middle of the road. And I am not kidding you. This dust devil picked my whole truck and trailer up and spun it 360 and set it back down.
That's not the first time I've heard a story like that too. I heard of another guy that happened to. He was out driving around and a tornado picked up his truck. Didn't hurt it. Picked it up, spun it 180 and set it on the other side of the interstate. I don't know how true that is. That was a story from a story, but nevertheless, I do tend to believe that stuff. I've seen some weird stuff.
People may not believe it, but there are some videos out there on YouTube where you actually see those things happen.
All right. 100 years ago, they had a record of a man that was farmer, and he got picked up by a tornado, and it ripped all of his clothing off and set him in, took him carried miles away, and set him down in somebody else's pasture land, butt naked, and completely uninjured. Might have had some bruises, but nothing broken, nothing. And he was carried miles, way up high and carried miles away. And I don't know if he was knocked unconscious or what, but when he woke up, there's old news articles that talk about that. They were like, you know, old Fred or whoever it was got picked up on the side of the road naked or whatever, and he was picked up by that tornado.
Yeah. I remember when I was younger, I saw a news story, and they showed they had a picture of it. The tornado that had gone through a small town had picked up a quarter, you know, just a coin, you know, a quarter, and that quarter blasted through 2 separate concrete walls in a building. Literally just blasted through it. I mean, how much speed does a tornado really pick up, or how much force does a tornado exert on the other things around it, you know?
It's unbelievable, and it's really kind of indescribable because, yeah, you're right, all those tornadoes produce odd phenomena. I've heard of other people saying that it'll take a blade of grass, like a piece of straw, and shove it through a tree. I don't even know how that's possible. You know, you think that the molecular composition of the straw would disintegrate while it was interacting with the wood of the tree, but they say it'll push a piece of straw right through a tree.
Yep. Yeah, you can put anything through any object with the proper amount of speed and force.
Yeah, nature's unbelievable. Blows my mind. I've actually seen quite a few odd little things. Nothing super impressive. I personally have never been picked up in my semi and flipped around and nothing. But I don't know. Every time I have an odd experience, I don't know. If you live through something unbelievable, you know, I think that points to God. But you know, that's anybody's argument. I mean.
Yeah. Now, when you've been out here on the road for many years, the little different things that you come across throughout the whole time, some of them are so unbelievable, but they actually happened. You know, you look back at your history out on the road and you're like, man, I cannot believe that actually happened. But I know it happened because I was there.
Oh, absolutely. You remember how you were saying you came down out of Laramie through 287? That's my old stomping ground. So I reference it. But I was going down the 287 route into Fort Collins. And just before you get to that Owl Canyon cutoff, and the canyon itself where, you know, it's cut through the mountain, before you get there, it turns a hard left. And I was coming down 287 one day, and it started raining hard. And it just started raining, and I was driving along. I shut off my cruise control, did everything right, slowed down, but I kid you not, I got inside of the troughs where the tire tracks had made troughs in the road. I got inside of it, stayed inside of it, and I started hydroplaning, and I could feel my trailer start to wiggle and start to wiggle back and forth, and it popped out of the troughs, and then it popped back in the troughs, and I did that. And I kept slowing down, but you can't hit the brakes. There's no brakes. I had no brakes at all. I mean, it was like glazed ice. It was better than glazed ice. It was like polished ice with oil on top of it. And I slid for probably a half a mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile, going back and forth with these gentle little jackknives, knowing that if I tried to do anything exotic, I was going to wreck that truck. And I just got out of the gas, I killed my Jake, and I just let it slow roll to you know, a safe speed, and when I started generating traction again, I tell you what, them troughs were full of water, and I jackknifed down 287 for an unbelievable amount of time. My wife was in the truck with me, and we both were just, it was so unbelievable. And right before we got to that turn at Owl Canyon, where I was like, this is it, it's now or never. We're going to go right off the road, or we're going to grab with our tires and make this turn. And it grabbed and we turned, and I was like, wow, that had to be God. I just had to be God.
I had kind of a similar experience here in Kansas, by the way, down on 35 out near Newton. I'm coming up out of Dallas one night. It's a nasty ice storm had come through. You know, I'm just traveling along on the ice, and there's that spot that's south of Newton where you cross a small bridge because it goes over a little dirt road, and then you cross another bridge that goes over a canal, and then another small road for another little dirt road bridge. You know, because they had a road on each side, so it's 3 little bridges. I'm coming up on those bridges, and I get these 2 little pickups that are traveling, you know, together, I guess, because they were right on each other's rear end. You know, the one following was like inches off of his buddy's rear end. They come around me, and when they come in front of me, the one truck that was directly in front of me, he was so close, all I could see was his back window. I couldn't see the truck bed, his pickup truck bed. When they came in, the one in the front started spinning out to the left, and the one in front of me started spinning to the right, and all I did was let off of the fuel pedal a little bit, and all of a sudden I couldn't feel my butt touching my seat. And I looked out the window and I was able to read the side of my trailer without using my mirrors. And I came across all 3 bridges that way.
Holy smoke. Yeah, yep. I've never jackknifed quite that hard and looked over and seen my trailer, but holy smokes, I used to run groceries between Denver and up over I-70 to Grand Junction, Glenwood Springs, and up into the mountains over to Gunnison, over to the Black Canyon and Montrose and Durango. And I went up I-70 one day, headed westbound, headed home, and I was going up I-70, and we got into a freezing rain, and I was like, babe, this is going to get ugly. And I dropped my speed down to about 20, and I threw in my differential, started climbing that last hill between Silverthorne and the top of Eisenhower Tunnel. And it's a couple mile run on that mountain, and it's the 7% grade. And I hit that grade, and I knew if I went too slow, I wouldn't make it to the top, and if I didn't make it to the top, I was going to cause a pileup. And I knew if I went too fast, I was going to cause a wreck too, but there was no way to stop because I had already passed all the chain-up stations and everything, and it was just this little freak storm stuck on the top of that mountain. So I entered that storm, and we jackknifed up the side of that mountain just a little bit. I kept the wiggle going, and every time we'd slide, I'd counter steer and slide, counter steer, and I kept my differentials going, and it was so slick that I got on that grade, and I dropped down to like 8 miles per hour, and every time I would downshift, I was afraid I was going to lose my speed. I barely made it up, just halfway up the hill, and there's this little relief spot where it levels out, maybe goes to 5%. Gained all my speed back, got up to about 20, and I started having to weave between the cars that were starting to spin out and slam into the Jersey barrier and stuff. And my wife and I did a 2-mile run up the face of that, probably about 2 miles I'm guessing, up the face of that mountain, driving around cars and jackknifing, praying the whole way. I was praying out loud and praying the whole way to the top. And meanwhile, on the eastbound or the westbound lanes, the other direction, they're coming down the hill, they are piling up into each other, everybody and everything. I'm watching DOT equipment, plows, snow plows and everything pile up with Swift trucks and everything you can imagine. I mean, there was literally like a 30 or 40 car truck mix pile up going the other direction while I'm weaving traffic, and we made it all the way to the top. But I assure you, if you believe in Jesus and you follow him, he makes your path straight.
Now that night that I slid across Kansas, you know, I didn't plan on stopping in at Newton, at the truck stop there in Newton, at that Clover, the 4-leaf Clover truck stop that's there. But you know, when I first started crossing those bridges, realizing that I was sideways, when I was looking out at the side of my trailer, I also realized there was a state trooper on the southbound side just sitting there watching it all happen, right? Well, I think it took me a little over 7, maybe 7.5 miles or so to actually fully straighten that truck back out. And by the time I finally got her fully straightened out, you know, I was only doing about 10 to 15 miles an hour. But I babied it into Newton and called it quits, got it parked, and I go inside and I sit down, order, you know, after I've calmed down a while, and order some dinner. Dinner arrives at the table, and right behind my dinner getting put on the table, here comes that state trooper sitting down in the seat with me, looking me straight in the face from across the table saying, dude, I don't know how you did it. I swear to God, you were going to be done for. Good job, you know. And I'm like, okay. You know, he says, I know you didn't hit anything, and I'm not going to give you a leaving the scene of an accident because I know there's no way in the world you could have stopped.
Well, praise God for good law enforcement. Right there, hats off to that gentleman. Hell of a law enforcement officer. Hell of a gentleman. Really good guy right there. Man, that's incredible. That is some serious jackknifing, folks. If you can read the side of your trailer when you're jackknifing, we're talking about you shouldn't make it. You shouldn't make it, period.
Yeah, and he did tell me though, if he hadn't have found me at that truck stop, because that was the next place I could have pulled into, if he hadn't have found me there, he would have found me down the road somewhere and given me that ticket.
Well, you know, there's a time to get off the road, and everybody knows it. You gotta stop sometimes. Life isn't worth it, right? But I always tell people, I grew up in Colorado hunting, fishing, and I drove four-wheel drive. I started out with four-wheel drive and up in the mountains and such, playing in the snow. And the best thing you can do to survive in inclement weather in a vehicle is to play in snow and ice in parking lots where there's no vehicles. Go out there at night. Go out there where there's no medians, there's nothing to hit. Start out easy, start out slow, and just learn what it feels like to slide. Learn what it feels like to fishtail. Learn what it feels like to do a donut. And then after you figure that out, put a cone in the parking lot and learn how to do donuts around the cone. Get your tail end spinning. Learn how your vehicle behaves. Learn how front wheel drive behaves versus rear wheel drive. And then stick it in four-wheel drive and find out what that feels like. Drive, drive, drive. Drive as much as you can. And here's the honest to God truth. I am almost 40 years old, and I've been driving semi for 5 years. In that period of time, I have driven each year, I've driven over 10 times what the average human being drives in a year. Every year I drive about 120,000 miles. Most of you are going to drive about 10,000, 12,000 miles. So every year I get 10,000 or 10 times more mileage experience than the average city driver. And so does my friend here. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of miles a year. And I promise you guys, it was that learning how to drive in the snow, playing in the snow, 4x4 and in the mountains, and just, you know, learning how physics work on snow and ice that has saved my life so many times in just 5 years.
Yeah, nah. You should always, it doesn't matter what vehicle you have, it's not ever going to react exactly the same as the vehicle you had before that one. There are no two vehicles on the face of this planet that will react exactly the same in every situation. So you should always go out and play with them. Like me growing up, you know, we had a farm, so I had plenty of empty farm fields in the wintertime to just go and do whatever I wanted to do out here. And I still do that. Every vehicle I pick up, I'll take it out to my dad's place and I'll just do whatever out in the snow, out in the middle of an empty farm field, and figure out what that vehicle will and will not do.
And you're speaking the truth more than most people can even comprehend, because it's that fishtailing where you learn how to counter steer in a direction that seems to, you know, an inexperienced driver, it feels like you're counter steering the wrong way. It's that instinct you build into your muscle memory that teaches you how to handle when you don't want it and you're not expecting it and it surprises you and you got those frozen bridges or whatever. I assure you, you saved your own life by just playing in the snow and ice, learning your equipment, getting familiar with every machine you own. I assure you that's what saved your life that day. And it was that and God.
Yep, definitely. But no, I usually average between 150 to 180,000 miles a year.
So for the math, folks, if you do that and run that out 120,000 miles a year, like I run, is about 12 times more than the average driver gets in a year. So at the end of a truck's lifespan, or at the end of your career truck driving, you have many, many, many combined lifespans of driving experience. And it's with a vehicle that's humongous and slides very easily. I offered to teach my nephew how to drive, and I just think my brother-in-law didn't want that to happen. But I was like, dude, you could sure learn from somebody better than, you know, I mean, somebody that knows how to float gears, somebody that knows stick shift, somebody that knows how to play in the ice and snow and deals with it every year, you know. If you have a truck driver friend that's willing to teach your kid how to drive, I highly recommend it.
And see, every year when the snow starts coming down all over the country, most of the truck drivers start only operating in the southern half of the country, because snow doesn't really fall down in a lot of those areas. Occasionally they'll get like an ice storm, like in Texas. I've been caught in an ice storm down there a couple of different times, you know, crossing Texas. Coming out of El Paso, going to Dallas, it's usually about, you know, half a day's drive to get there. And when the ice storm hits, it ends up taking 3 days to get from El Paso to Dallas. And that's just crazy. But in the wintertime, I stay up north, mainly because there's a lot less trucks that are up here, because they're all running away from the snow, because I don't have a problem with it.
The worst problem that you have with snow drivers that don't know what they're doing is their first inclination is to slam on the brakes when they have a problem, and that is a death knell for you right there. I mean, that alone, that impulse is the worst thing you can do. And I operate the same way, by the way. When I was hauling groceries up and down, back and forth between Denver and Grand Junction, I got comfortable with it in a semi, and then when I started branching out home, I realized it's better to be in Montana in a snowstorm than
Yeah, I got a friend this year. He's now over here driving under my under. He had been driving for Budweiser out there in Colorado for the last, I don't know how many years, but this year he was down there. He'd come out of Colorado Springs headed for Pueblo, and there's a spot there where there's a bit of a hill that kind of, it's a small hill going up, and then there's a dip in the middle at the top as it starts to curve at the same time. It curves to the left, and then there's another dip, and then you go downhill. Well, he got right up in the middle of that curve in that dip, and instead of, he didn't even have time to try to correct or anything. It just, boom, truck just went straight off the road into the embankment.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I've seen ice and black ice slick that you wish you had a stick shift, because there's a lot of people don't realize is that even an automatic, if you just get out of, that alone causes transmission drag that'll make your tires start to slide rather than roll. And it's the sliding, not the rolling, that's the problem. So a lot of people don't realize if you know what you're doing in a manual, you can get yourself out of a lot of situations that an automatic really probably is never going to do well in.
Yeah, and that's one thing that does worry me a little bit about this truck, because this truck mission, and it's the first truck I've ever driven. And I put a lot of work in the way. You know, I've rewired it completely. I've pulled it apart and replaced some of the gears in it. You know, I've replaced it, the transmission computer on it. But there are times when this thing when this transmission does things that I don't feel it should do.
Well, absolutely. Or if you're just get out of the gas pedal, sometimes it's a drag on it. But there's also a point where you can shift the gear. If you've ever driven a stick, there's a point where you can float the next gear and do it even with the Jake on, and the Jake doesn't activate. And that's basically neutral point on the gas pedal. And you can do that while you're in gear. You can get this neutraling point where you're neither accelerating nor decelerating. And that's that sweet spot, folks. If you're ever driving on ice, it's that quick. If you can just get to the point where you're neither accelerating nor decelerating with the gas pedal, you're not putting transmission drag on the engine, and you're not putting any throttle into it. If you're in that sweet spot, that's the spot where you're neutral, and that's where you want to stay in gear.
Yeah, it's like this winter, I took a power only down to Reno, and I couldn't find the Northwest, or I mean back up into the Seattle area to pick something up, or because I had another load out of Seattle coming a few days later. So I was bobtailing from Reno back up this winter. I was crossing Oregon 58. It's just a small, you know, the tunnel is if you're going westbound, it's a right-hand curve. The tunnel is curved, and you know, it's icy out everywhere, but the road is bare and dry. But I know from years of experience that even when the road is bare and dry and it's freezing out, the inside of a tunnel is going to be compact ice, right? So I'm slowing down before the tunnel, making sure that I'm gonna be all right. And the second my truck got on the ice inside the tunnel, I ended up completely sideways across both the lane. And at that point, I was just praying that there was nothing coming in from the other end. And I flipped my train horn on and just drifted all the way through that tunnel. And as soon as I hit the dry pavement on the other side, the truck just straightened right back out.
That's called drifting right there, buddy. That is drifting, and that's what you should do in the parking lot. Sit up.
Yeah, but the reason that I ended up sideways in the tunnel was because the transmission decided that it needed to shift by itself because it's an automatic.
Remember, fear is the ultimate killer.
Yep.
You lose your clarity of mind. It's just like the boxers. The first goal of many boxers when they're boxing another man, you respond with emotion rather than logic. You respond in a way that overrides even your instincts that are good and well trained. Get past your anger. Fear and anger.
This one thing everybody needs to remember in life, no matter what life throws at you, no matter what life throws at you, do not panic.
That's right, and never allow that rage to come over you that just uncontrollably makes you want to hurt or smash. There's a type of anger that's good you can use and you can control, but there's another type of anger that just is to harm, and it's a blind rage. Never go there. You'll always lose control, and it'll always hurt you more than anybody else.
Yup, very well said. That crosswind is starting to slow me down pretty good.
Yeah, I'm even getting a little fuel mileage loss. Not a lot, but a little.
I'm going to back out of it and drop back behind this guy here. With that crosswind, I just don't have the acceleration to get up past him.
No worries, brother. It's all yours. Come on.
That's one of the disadvantages of having that extra stretch on the frame. That extra space between the trailer and the truck creates just the wrong kind of drag, especially when you got a crosswind.
Oh yeah. Well, even if you don't have a crosswind, that air will boil over the top of the sweeper, and it'll roll in between the trailer nose and the back of the truck and cause enormous amounts of drag. That's the scientific term, drag. But Yep, even in aviation, it's all about lift weight, thrust, and drag. But if you can reduce your drag, it's because you pulled your trailer as close to your sleeper as you can get it. So I know what you mean. I have a sliding fifth wheel, and I try to get my fifth wheel as close as I can to my tractor so that I have less drag. But my problem is my sleeper is about a foot and a half shorter than my nose of my trailer. And so I pretty much, the wind rolls over the top of my truck and slams into the nose of the trailer.
Yeah, that's why they make that. That's why they make that fancy spoiler we're all supposed to put on top on the roof of our trucks, right?
Yeah, I haven't, but I probably should. I don't know. Just for the fuel mileage benefits. I don't know what it'll do, though. I don't know if it really works all that well.
Well, that's my understanding. A lot of people seem to think it'll get you almost 2 miles to the gallon more. But, you know, that's all conjecture and rumor, so I've not seen any scientific study or facts on it.
I know you were saying power only. I do some of that too, and this is my trailer. I run my own most of the time, and it doesn't have skirting on it. That's also fuel mileage improving. But I have actually dropped just and hooked onto skirted trailers, and I have seen my fuel mileage go up. So, I mean, I'm not all California style and all that, but there is some stuff California's come up with that makes some sense. And I will admit, trailer skirting does actually improve fuel mileage, and I'll argue that to the death.
Yes and no, it does, but you don't actually see any improvement in the fuel mileage until you're traveling at least 63, 65 miles an hour. Because anything under that, and you don't have enough of that, air bubble around, it's kind of like this air bubble forms around everything on the vehicle, you know, and that air bubble is what protects you from the drag. And you know, those skirts that we've got and all that other stuff, it all really doesn't work until you've got enough forward momentum to actually make it work, which is right around 63 to 65 miles an hour. And the problem with California is the speed limit for trucks is 55, so what good is it?
That's good. You just put it on your trailer and never go to California. I'm an OTR driver and regional driver mostly. So for me, it's always worked, but what you're saying makes perfect sense. I'll say this much. If you're regional or OTR and you're not driving in California, skirts are the best thing you could ever do. Unfortunately, you can't even technically go into California without trailer skirts. So, well, leave it to California to break everything.
Just like now, you can't even go into California without an operational regen system.
You also can't go into California unless you're a W-2 company driver or a full-blown owner-operator like me.
Yeah, you got to have your own authority, and you can't have any leased-on drivers, because if you've got leased-on drivers, they to that AB5.
On drivers, and my curiosity was, would I be able to still go into California even though they can? Not that I would want to, but, you know, it's more like the flexibility idea, you know, or maybe one of those ultra high dollar Christmas loads or whatever, I don't know.
No, I avoid California like the plague.
Yeah, I basically do too. I mean, it's been a very long time since I've gone into California with a semi, but never driven a car into California. But yeah, no, I'm the same way. All of my entries and exits to California occurred before '85 and before they decided that murder was legal, and yeah, basically before they completely fell apart and finished the last bits of their own personal destruction.
Yeah, see, the last time I was in California was with the People's Convoy when they were out in Sacramento. That's the only time in years that I've been in California. And like I said, I avoid it like the plague, because before that, the last time I'd been in California, I was in my old Kenworth. And was down in LA. Traffic stopped in it's like 6 lanes wide or something in that spot that I was in. It was out there by where the 60 and the 210 kind of cross, and traffic in my lane, which was right in the middle, stopped. So I stopped, and next thing I know, I'm being sideswiped on both sides of the truck at the same time. And California, the officer that showed up on the scene, and the state pinned that accident on me for 2 accidents.
Yeah, they know that trucking companies have higher insurance values, and there's more money in it, and there's more money in the tickets. So it's really not about right or wrong. It's about the money. Follow the money.
Well, I had dash cam video that clearly showed that I never left my lane. There's no way that I sideswiped anybody, let alone in both sides. You know, the insurance company ended up not having to pay anybody because they got a good lawyer. But when it came to me trying to fight that ticket, the state just even their court, because the way California does it, especially if you don't reside in that state, you have to go to court through the mail system. So you put down everything on the, and you provide all your evidence and everything down, and you mail it back to them, and then they have this little thing, and they mail you back the result. Well, they mailed back the result that I was still at fault for both accidents.
That was just another indication of our country and how justice system is a joke, and how a godless nation is a joke too. Because if you really don't believe that there's somebody up there that will hold you accountable for your shit later on, then what's keeping you from doing what you can, especially if you're the head man, you're the top guy, and there's no accountability for you. You're just going to do what you want.
Yep.
I mean, it's the same programming. It's the beginning of the same programming they did to Nazi Germany. I mean, they convinced all these people that they should be afraid of the Jews. They convinced them that they should be, that they were bettering society, and suddenly a whole group of people believed it, so much so that, even the nurses in Nazi Germany, there was a whole group of nurses that were responsible for just putting people to death, if they were weak or infirm, the shoe piles and all that. I mean, it doesn't take long, and people don't realize it, but you can become so programmed that you'll believe anything. That's the strange thing about the human mind, is it can actually be convinced of things that it doesn't even believe it could become convinced of.
Give me a second to answer that, Mobo. I got to do some math on the mileage.
Think about the nurses. I mean, how did they get to the point in their heart and their mind where they thought euthanizing a human being just because they have Down syndrome or because they're 80 years old is a good idea? But they had been programmed to do that, so they did it. I mean, you become compliant, and then you lose sight of who you are, and you lose your own identity even in the process of being reprogrammed in your mind. And suddenly you look up one day and you go, I don't even like me, and I don't like what I became. Kind of like me when I got into pornography too much. You get to the point where you look up one day and you're like, who have I become, and what am I, and why did I lose my identity, and who is it that's telling me that I'm a monster, that I listened to long enough that I finally believed, and how did they get that message through to me in such a way that it was believable? And it's those little subtle lies. It's the way that we take a word in the English dictionary and redefine it so that, like the word fetus, it's like didn't even exist until people decided that they wanted to murder babies.
Yeah. Well, doing the math, it appears I'm going to end up about an hour short of making it to Springfield. And I've got about 2 hours left right now before I have to take a half-hour break. So when we come across the next truck stop area, I'm going to pull off and take that 30 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to be about an hour short of getting to Springfield. I don't know what's north of Springfield by about an hour. Because in about 93 miles, I'm going to take exit 250A onto the 135 headed towards Wichita. And then another 85 miles down from there is going to be turning on to Kansas 96 East. And then down to US 400 East. Catch that? I'm going to have to take that mandatory 30-minute break. I'm going to pull off right here and get this Sinclair.
I might try to join you.
Right here at the Sinclair.
Copy that. Glad you said it in time because I have to dump speed.
Then take the first left.
Well, I caught the Sinclair out of the corner of my eye and realized that it actually had semi-trucks parked at it, so. Now I just got to figure out how to get into it.
You're going to take me on a wild goose chase, aren't you?
Nah, we're good, we're good, we're good. We found it. I figured it out.
When possible, begin your turn, then take the first right. Turn right at the stop sign, then take the first right.
Yeah, I figured I'd pull over, shake your hand, meet you. I won't be able to chat long, but I thought I'd just meet you. It'd be nice.
Yeah, just be careful with some of them potholes. Those are some of them are big enough here to swallow a minivan.
That's alright, I wanted new kingpins anyway. I'm backing into a spot over here. I don't know where you're at.
I'm just off to your left. I'm already parked. I'll meet you inside. I gotta water the tree.
Yeah.
All right, folks. I'm gonna step out of the truck for a little bit. Y'all behave. Sid, you take. I'm back. Got a sandwich to eat. And a cookie. I got a cookie. It's all about the cookie. It's all about the cookie. I gotta check my log and see how much time I've already been sitting here so I know about when to pull out. Sandwich. Oh. And our friend Pee-wee is probably going to leave a little bit before that because he doesn't have the kind of time to sit here because he's got to go. But I will probably catch back up to him on the highway, so. Is everybody enjoying their lunch? Was everybody good, Sid? Was everybody good? Huh? Did you keep them in line? Here. Have some beef jerky, buddy.
You got your CD on, Black Wölf?
Yes, sir, I do.
I'll go screw it anyway. I got a food to eat in here, but I figured I'd take my 30 here. I'm going to fill up in Black Wölf, Oklahoma, though. Are you going down that route that far, or are you going to cut across somewhere halfway in between?
I was gonna cut down 135.
Yeah, 135 goes down into, so basically turns into 35 in Oklahoma. And I wasn't sure if you were going to cut across. There's actually a good route into like Neosho, Missouri, over on the southern border, southern edge of Kansas. I wasn't sure if you were going to go that route or if you're going to take the that highway that goes up to I-44 out to Tulsa and then northeast into Missouri or what, but I don't know. I figured I'd stick around, so if you want to keep chatting, we sure could.
Yeah, we can. Let's see, my GPS is telling me I-35, 91 miles down I-35, and then we're going to go on to Kansas 96, and then we're going to get onto the US 400. And then we end up somewhere down the road there on Missouri 249, and then over onto the I-44.
I'll have to leave you at Wichita. That's not a problem.
Yeah, not a big deal. I got to stop and get fuel down the road too, because I'm down just above a quarter of a tank now. But you know, then it doesn't matter where I stop to get fuel because I'm coming out of my own pocket and cash for it on this run.
You ever bought the OIDA fuel card?
I've got 3 different fuel cards. I've got the OIDA one, I've got Comdata, and I've got EFS.
Right now you can get $4.43 a gallon at Casey's. It beats the cash price. Like, there's 2 Casey's along the route just north of Wichita. It's a pretty damn good price, buddy.
Yeah, but you know, I'm not under a load, and I'm taking a trip out to do a patriotic freedom thing, so I'm coming out of my pocket in cash for this one. I'm not going to be using my fuel cards.
Right, I forgot. Give me a sec, I need to make a phone call.
Not a problem. I'm trying to eat my sandwich. Hello, everybody. Alright, folks. Looks like I might be at the Stockyard Travel Plaza tonight. That's in Parsons, Kansas. Looks like that's about as far as I'm going to be able to make it today.
He's about up. Are you leaving right on the nose of it, or what?
Yeah, I was planning on pulling out right after it clicked. I'll usually wait until my clock says I've been sitting here for 31 minutes.
I do the same.
So yeah, around Joplin, I guess. I might be able to just pull into Joplin. How many miles is Joplin from Springfield? Anybody know how many miles Joplin is from Springfield? Because as long as it's a little over 70 miles, then I can make Joplin. Two more minutes and we pull out. Hey Garmin. Hey Garmin. Hey Garmin, go to Joplin, Missouri.
Which result would you like? Going to Joplin, Missouri. Please drive to highlighted route.
5 hours, 24 minutes. Minutes short. Yeah. Stockyard Plaza over there in Parsons, Kansas.
Going to Stockyard Travel Plaza, Shell, on 2431 North 16th Street in Parsons.
Alright, get into gear. There we go. Here we roll.
Yeah, copy that. I'll pull you.
Sounds like he's coming with me for a little while anyway. So you guys get the pleasure of having Pee-wee follow us for a little bit longer today.
Turn right at the stop sign, then take the first right. Turn right at the traffic light. Continue I-70.
Alright. Now you get to see how much of a mouse motor I really have.
Oh, you're not doing too bad. It's gutless, but it's not too awful.
Yeah, she used to be really snappy and quick, but over time she's, you know, over the mileage, she's gotten less and less. That's just name of the game.
So I gotta shut it off for just a second. I got somebody on the phone, okay?
Dan,
I'll come back here in a bit.
all right, people. Have you had a good lunch today? What'd you get for lunch? Let's talk about it. I got a Subway spicy Italian with spinach, green peppers, pickles, olives, and pepperoncinis, mayo, mustard, salt, pepper, oil, vinegar on the Italian urban cheese bread. And I got a cookie. I got a cranberry thingy cookie. It's all about the cookie. There we go. Y'all should be able to hear me a lot better now. I don't have you hanging up next to the CB because he's on a phone call, so he's not going to be talking for a little bit, but we'll see. Let's not forget, hashtag no more third terms. Yes, I have a convoy, even though it's only for a moment. Even though it's only 2 trucks. You know, if he said if he hadn't already had another load returning him back from Tulsa, that he would have come and spent the weekend with us out there doing the slow roll in Missouri, and then going to that going to the patriotic freedom picnic that we're doing there in Jefferson City. But he's already got a backhaul. He delivers the load he's on tomorrow down in Tulsa, and then immediately picks up and heads right back into Colorado. That's MT native, Montana native. That's probably because I'm one of the few that has any common sense left. And when it comes to most of the other people out there, that, especially the live streamers or any of them, wrapped up into themselves and their own live streams, and into maybe even just into the, and they're not looking at all of them. They're not looking at all the other movements. They're not looking outside their own little box, and they're kind of closed-minded. You know, they're sitting there. I'm not close. You know, I am willing with anybody that has an opposing idea of any kind, whether it's political or religious or just everyday kind of talk. You know, if they have a completely different idea of the way things are than I do, we can sit down and we can have an intelligent conversation and find out that we really do agree on a lot of things. We just look at it in a different way. And that's the message I'm trying to get out to the people, is somebody can consider themselves liberal but refuse to talk to anybody outside of their liberal view or what they've been told to view as liberal. And when you sit down and talk to them and you explain it how you see things, in a nice conversation, you begin to realize they're not as liberal as they think they are. And with the conservatives, they're not as conservative as they, or as they have been programmed to think they are. If we want this country to turn around and start heading back in the right direction, everybody in this country needs to come together, sit down, have that conversation, and find the middle ground and use them forward. Because this is a giant melting pot of a country. It's not all one side or all the other side. Because there are no sides. There's just the programming that they have put into everybody, over making them think that there are sides. Because when you break it down, you've got the supposed left side has these bills that would be awesome for the economy of this country and for the people of this country. But they complain and cry to the media that they can't get it passed because the right side refuses to work with them. And then the right side has the same kind of bills, and they do the same thing and complain that they can't get it passed through because the left side won't work with them. But then again, all of those great bills for the people that don't go through, there are so many more of them that are bad for this country and bad for the people that both sides allow to pass through. So from my perspective, there are no parties. There's only one agenda, and it's a bad one, and they keep pushing it through. You know, I really wish it was easier to be able to tell everybody in the country all at the same time what I'm saying. And I say it very clearly in my hashtag No More Third Terms video, which, by the way, thank you, Silly, for putting that, for posting that out there. I see that you did it over there on the Twitch side, and I think you did it on the YouTube side here a few minutes ago. But that video really does need to be shared out there. You know, because like me, when it comes to voting, I could vote as an independent. I could be a registered independent or non-decided or whatever, right? But then when it comes to primaries or any kind of voting, I only get a very tiny ballot. I don't get to see everything that's being voted on or everybody that's being voted on. So they've got it rigged so that you either have to be a Democrat registered or a Republican registered to actually get a real ballot to look at, right? So I'm a constitutionalist, but that doesn't fall in anywhere. I believe 100% in the Constitution. The Constitution is the law of the land, period. Anything that supersedes that Constitution in any way, shape, or form is null and void. That is how I see it. And that is how I use my vote. Okay? But since it's not considered a real party, I'm stuck with either Democrat Party or Republican Party to register as in order to get a real ballot. So I guess, being a constitutionalist, that puts me a little bit more on the supposed conservative side. So that's how I register as a Republican. But I'm not. I don't believe in either of the two parties. The only reason I do that is solely so that I get a decent ballot to look at and be able to vote, be able to educationally choose, go through my own investigation and research into all of the different candidates and all of the different bills that we get to vote on and things like that. I get to look at all of it and research it and choose wisely on my own education of what I've seen on who and what I'm voting for. And that's how everybody should do it. And it really shouldn't be based on what party are they under, because you might be surprised. You might consider yourself a really staunch Republican or conservative, but there might be somebody that is running, but they're registered as a Democrat, simply because they have one point of view that didn't coexist with the conservative view, so the conservatives wouldn't let them be on their side, so they had to go to the Democrats. Well, you might be surprised. That person might be the one that you would actually vote for if you did your research into the people. They might have the same kind of agenda that you're interested in for the future. They might have voted the same way that you want them to for their entire career up to that point. They might fit every one of your little boxes, but you otherwise would never look at them because they're on the other side. What I'm saying is start looking at all candidates and do not vote for anybody over 2 terms. If they've had 2 terms in that one seat, they're done. Don't vote for them again. It's time to stop career politicians. Yeah, I got my CB on. I was in the middle of a good rant there for a second.
I apologize. I don't know why, but my TV acts a little weird. I didn't hear you when I listened. I didn't hear anything, so.
Yeah, no, I was going off on a little tear on my YouTube channel there for a second. Telling the people about my hashtag no more third terms.
Absolutely. Are we still recording?
Yes, sir, we are still live.
Holy smokes, buddy. Do you record the whole day, or how does that work?
As long as I'm awake, it's all, I try to make sure that I'm broadcasting all day, every day, as long as I'm awake. Unless I'm doing things that, the rest of the world doesn't need to know about. Like if I'm spending time with my family or friends, that there's situations where you just don't video. So there'll be times where you might go 2, 3, 4 days and you won't see me on live, but then there'll be a week or 2 solid where I'm on every day.
All right. Oh, I like that. That's a different way that I'm not used to seeing YouTubers film. That's cool, though.
Well, you know what I told you about with the 3-letter alphabet soup and some other factions in the country that like to keep people quiet. That's one of the reasons I do the live streaming in the first place, because if anything is going to happen, it's going to be on film.
Smart man. Yep, and then it's live on YouTube. It's kind of really hard to snuff that out.
Now, see, the thing is, I don't just broadcast it to YouTube. I've got it broadcasting to YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, and a couple other little places.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, I like Rumble. Rumble's a good platform.
Yeah. I love Rumble. The only problem that I have on it is that you really don't have any way to control the comment section. Like if you're doing a live stream, you get live comments. The people that are viewing you as you're live are commenting the whole time, and there's no way to moderate the type of language or what's being said on Rumble.
Right. Absolutely, I get it. Yeah, no, that makes good sense though, but yeah. Well, at least there's a platform out there that's not going to censor us, or at least we know it won't right now. Hopefully it never does.
Well, you know, it's a lot like Parler. The Parler app was kind of like a Twitter, and it was supposed to be all non-censorship and, you know, freedom of speech and the whole nine, right? Well, eventually the government forced them to start censoring things. So instead of, you know, after things started getting a little bad and people started leaving Parler because they were no longer, you know, freedom of speech based at that point, Parler shut down.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. It was because they were on the Amazon MWS platform that they were basically web hosting for Parler too, I thought.
Sorry guys, I do not remember what my Rumble is at this moment. I programmed it into my live streaming app.
Weird deal, but a bad one.
I programmed it into my live streaming app and I have not remembered what it really is. When I stop for the day, I can go back and look in and see what it sees and remember what it is. But for right now, since I'm driving, I'm not gonna play around with the phone to try to figure it out. It is Black Wölf, but it's I don't remember if it's listed under my whole company name or under just Black Wölf, or if it's a different combination.
Well, you right
but it's
along
up
with
there.
somebody like this chatting sure does make the day go faster.
Oh yes, you know, just having somebody to chat with on the radio makes the day go by a little better. But even without that, when you're live streaming, you got people there that are just talking to you all day long.
Yeah, that's super cool. That is something I've never really done. I don't publish myself. I don't do any videos. I've thought long and hard about it, and one day I might. But you know, I don't really have that much experience with it. It just sounds interesting and something I've considered. You know, what do you recommend if you were to start over? If you were in my shoes, would you do it again?
Yes, I would.
I don't know. Sometimes I have a hard time when I encounter the trolls. I don't know. I just don't put up with it. But I'm also that kind of person that I don't have a filter when I run into a troll. So it's like I'm kind of concerned about that one.
That's why I have some really good moderators. My Rumble is the only one that you can't even have a moderator on Rumble. So, but on everything else, my moderators are extremely good at playing whack-a-troll.
How do you get a moderator? How does that all work? I don't even know what you
do. They're people that are subscribed to you. You build a rapport with them. You know them. Maybe you met them in person, or maybe there's somebody in your family or in your everyday life, and they happen to watch your live streams every time you're on. You just touch their name and hold on to it for a second, and it brings up a list of things. You can either go to their YouTube channel, or you can delete their comment, or you can delete their comment and put them in a timeout, which is like 5 minutes. They can't say anything in the chat, or you can hide them, which basically that makes it so they can never talk in your chat again, unless you get into the backside of YouTube and undo it. But then underneath that, there's a little button that says add as a moderator, and if you click that, then they're immediately given that little wrench and they're added as a moderator for your channel.
Okay, that makes sense. We're kind of all about, truthfully, about your internet security too. For those trolls, they get a hold of stuff and they get angry enough, and you say something to them, they say something to you, and suddenly they're trying to hack you or whatever, you know. That's always been a concern of mine.
That's why I change my password now once a week.
Yeah, that's definitely valuable. Speaking of passwords, we were talking about the Linux box and the Linux system. We were talking about Android, Apple. I have a password vault that I recommend people get. It's called KeePass. Whatever you use, it doesn't really matter as long as you've vetted it, make sure it's a good password vault. But getting yourself an encrypted password vault is very wise. A lot of people say, that there's other ways that those get breached, but I've had a lot less issues with my own identity theft since I got a password vault. And inside of KeePass is a password generator, and it's all free, and it works on any platform. I've recommended it for friends who have Apple phones. I use it on my Linux box. I use it on Windows. I use it on Android. I mean, it works anywhere, truly anywhere. You can use it on Ubuntu Linux. You can use it on Mint, any of the main Linux platforms, and the ones that are based off the Ubuntu kernel. So I don't know. I mean, getting a password vault is a very valuable thing these days. And I know with some of the systems that KeePass runs on, you can get what's called a clipboard. Is a separate clipboard from your phone or your computer's copy paste. So when you copy the password, it saves it in a different spot than the clipboard is usually. And because lately they've run into this issue where people are putting, hacks into people's computers that track what you put on your clipboard, and then they steal your password that way. So this clipboard stores the password for like 30 seconds, and then it self-deletes. It's got a lot of really nice safety features.
Yeah. So guys, today though, actually for the last couple of weeks, I've only been broadcasting on YouTube and on Twitch. Because I decided, I'm still undecided about actually broadcasting on Rumble anymore because of the fact that you can't moderate what is going on in the chat. And I've seen some pretty bad things said in those chats. Yeah, no, the way the clipboard system works on most devices these days is just, it is so unsafe because you can go and put something into your clipboard, or you can go and type in your password directly, and your system, your random memory access there, it's sitting in there until it either gets overwritten or flashed out.
Absolutely, that's exactly right. And nowadays they also have keystroke recording hacks that they install on your computer, so they can figure out what your password is just by recording your keyboard strokes. That is one of the weaknesses with KeePass is that you have a master password that gets you in the vault, and if you have a key, they have key generating software that can record your keystrokes. They can get your master password, and once they have that, they can get in. But they also have to have access to the encrypted file as well as the software to read it.
Now remember, kids, this is exactly why we don't download foreign programs or foreign apps for your phone or device. If it's not a mainstream app, don't touch it.
That's right.
And that being said, don't even trust the mainstream apps either, because most of them are put out by some of the worst people like Google.
You're exactly right. Leads to something else though. KeePass uses third-party Android apps. You got to be careful which one you download. Be a lot better off with Apple.
Hey, look at this, guys. I'm over here, this little town you're seeing up on the left, and it looks like a nice little town. It's Bunker Hill, Kansas. Bunker Hill, Kansas.
That's right where I was at when I had the tornado.
Which means I'm in Bunker Hill, guys. All right, where's everybody at? I'm in Bunker Hill. Let me look for all the American flags.
Actually, this little fuel stop up here, if you're just running the I-70 corridor in and out of Kansas, it's the best fuel rates between here from Denver to Kansas.
Which one is the best one?
That one you're looking at, that one with the yellow canopy, it looks like a farmhouse.
You need to get fuel? Because I do.
Actually, I'm headed further around and getting fuel by the Casey's closer to Wichita, so, and it's actually a better rate if you're headed south. But if you're headed east, this is the best rate on I-70.
Ah, okay. You just let me know when we need to pull off to get fuel, because, like I said, I'm right at a quarter of a tank now.
How many mile range do you think you got left?
I got about, well, my dashboard says I got 53 gallons, and says that's going to use about 231 miles, and I know I got about a 50-gallon reserve.
All right, let me check real quick and I'll give you an answer.
Touch all the things. Ah, yes, you know exactly where I am, Jen. Well, did you put a GPS tracker on my truck while I wasn't looking?
Well, it looks like Heston, Kansas probably has pretty good rates for that Casey's there, but I'm actually going to fuel up in Oklahoma. It looks like there's the best rate I got on my route is in Oklahoma, so I probably won't fuel up with you, brother, but wherever you decide to pull off, I guess we'll have to part ways at that point.
Alright, that's not a big deal. I'll let you know when I'm ready to pull off, because I like to try to run her right down to just before she's touching the E, and then get fuel. That way I know I'm not keeping stagnant fuel in there too much.
That also keeps the sludge, not sludge, but if you have any dust or any grunge at the bottom of your tank, instead of letting it build up and settle down and silt at the bottom, it forces it up into the fuel water separator and clean it out, and that keeps you from packing off if you ever don't do that.
Yeah, but if you have one of them new trucks that has all of that new regen system stuff on it, you don't want to do that, because it will shut your it'll put your engine into a D-rate, and you'll be crawling around, and you'll have to get your whole fuel system cleaned out and everything. It's thousands of dollars to get that fixed.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. I've driven all ages of truck. I've been fortunate enough to do that. You're absolutely right. I go down to a quarter tank on this truck, and I always stop. So you're absolutely right, though. You do not want to drain them down low on the newer systems.
Yeah, that's why I have an older truck, so I don't have to worry about it. Matter of fact, you know, last time I opened up my front drive axle's differential and replaced the seal on it and everything, and the excess axle oil that I had drain out of there so I could put new in. I just dumped it right into my fuel tank and kept on going.
Just a little lubricity, right?
Yeah, she'll burn anything.
I really will. You'd be surprised what you can put in there. That's also why a lot of the, the fuel additive boys are getting on it so much, is they know that you'll burn it, and whether or not you really see a result or not, they know it's just anybody's guess in most cases. I do like Hot Shot Secret though, that's pretty good. Use the Power Service Winter Anti-Gel, and I use the Hot Shot Secret every once in a while, clean her up. And yeah, that's a good system.
I usually run a bio cleanse through my tanks about twice a year. It's a chemical that you can go in and you can get. It eats up all biological materials. So if you have picked up bad fuel anywhere, like maybe a tiny dose of algae or something, and it starts to grow in your tanks, well, at least that cleans it out and burns it right through the system.
What's the brand and what is it?
I would have to go digging to find it and see if I even have a can of it here on the truck right now, because I cannot remember its name off the top of my head.
Oh, don't worry about it. But it's an algae killer, or what did you say it was?
It's a bio treatment. It basically kills all biological material that might be in the fuel and in your fuel lines and the whole nine. So basically, anything from algae to maybe a living parasite that's in there, or anything biological, it'll kill it, and then it just gets ran through the engine like everything else.
Okay, all right, I'll keep that in mind. I'm going to look for that.
Hey, small water guy, didn't you notice in her last live stream she had that giant ring on her finger? I'll bet you that's maybe, I'm just guessing, she might actually be married to the dealership.
There's actually one other. Pittsburgh Power makes a fuel treatment that's supposed to keep your DPF and DEF filters clean if you're running a newer truck. That's pretty good stuff too.
Yeah, I've had a lot of good. I've heard a lot of good things about that Pittsburgh Power, that fluid that they have out there. It's not cheap, but it works.
If you're trying to make your after treatment filters and all last forever, that's probably the best way to go, I've heard.
Well, on my old Kenworth, my favorite thing to do was, instead of taking it to the shop every 3 months, I started taking the filters out, taking them over to the Blue Beacon and having them acid wash them out, spray it out one way until the black stuff quits, flip it over, spray it out the other way until the black stuff quits. Keep doing that until absolutely no black stuff comes out, and then you use your air compressor nozzle with a pinpoint nozzle on it and blow all the excess water out as much as you can. Throw it back in the truck, reinstall everything, tighten it down, start the truck up and make it do a forced regen, which of course for like the first 10 minutes to put out a huge steam cloud, but once it's dried out, there's for another.
That's awesome, dude. So Blue Beacon, use the acid wash. I got it all. All right, I've got that in my head. And that's just,
Yeah, that's. You got to remember though, before you do it, you stop by the dealership and ask it. So basically, it ends up wash and like $30 to $60 in gaskets and your time. That's all it costs you.
and you and I both know some of the biggest costs is just parking the truck and leaving it at a dealership or at a truck repair shop that puts you off for an entire week and you just sit there doing nothing, So being able to fix your own equipment is a big deal.
Well, see, on that old Kenworth of mine, through that filter, and that's how I'm at a 0.2 restriction after going and running the filters through a Blue Beacon, and according to all the different Kenworth dealerships that I was going to at the time, the best you could get, even from a bacon blast, would be a 0.7.
Just goes to show you they don't really want to fix your problem at all. They just want you back in the shop 3 weeks later.
Yep. So that's why almost every...
Brian was like, he's been trucking a lot longer than me, like you have, and he came out with the DEF systems and all that. He said all those repair shops went from being 1 and 2 bay and 3 bay small-time mechanicking operations to all of a sudden all of them have 7, 8, 10, 12 bays. They got 15 mechanics. They got night shift rotations. They got secretaries and office staff out the wazoo, and so much money off the deck right away.
Yes, they were, and they still are.
Oh, it's a pure killing, dude. I thought about quitting trucking and going to mechanicking.
You know, before they came up with the system and the DPF and DEF garbage, you know, there used to be a going joke around the industry that, you know, just like you're going to run out of blinker fluid, you know, you'd see a truck going up the mountain and he's blowing them big rolling coal stacks. You know, that coal's just massive coming out of that truck, and somebody'd get on the radio and say, "Hey, you're gonna run out of that diesel exhaust fluid, brother."
Yeah, exactly.
It used to be a joke, and then somebody in California decided to take it upon themselves to make it a reality.
Yep. Can't fix stupid, right?
There's no fixing California.
No, actually, I mean, truthfully, they're on a constant downward slide, and that's just how it'll always be, I think.
Hey, everybody on the YouTube side, are we still there? Somebody say something in the chat right now.
You hear the
I
latest
just got
news anyway?
notified
I was
that it
watching
reset.
one of my favorite news channels. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, Starbucks is kind of getting their dues back. They
Good.
they've had
Thank you.
stores, some in the bigger cities of California, Portland, and Seattle, and all along the western seaboard because of too much drug use, too much vandalism, and too much crime. And it's like, man, you know, payback's for a bitch.
Yeah, but all that crime and vandalism and drugs has been brought in and allowed by all of the crazy laws that those idiots have passed into effect.
That's right, exactly. That's exactly right. They have created an environment that propagates it. I mean, I live in Colorado, and it's the same situation. I was born and raised there, so I can really talk, you know. I watched it all slowly develop, and as we started making more and more ridiculous laws, more and more crime, and more homelessness happened. I have no problem with homeless people. I'm just saying, the more the laws are repressive, the more the middle class becomes the poor class. And so, I mean, it's just... And now they've legalized marijuana, and they're trying to work on legalizing hallucinogenic mushrooms and such like that. And I always warn my friends and stuff. I said, you know, I don't know. I mean, like, if you want to smoke pot, you do what you want to do. I'm not going to stop you. But the problem is that when you legalize it, you look up and all the crime follows it. And sure enough, they were like, no, I won't do that. And sure enough, Colorado crime's gone through the roof, bud. I mean, through the roof since we legalized pot. And there's a lot of people crossing state lines every day now, especially to Wyoming. There's a lot of people buying marijuana and driving it up into Wyoming and other states. And it's just, the crime level has gone way up, and the neighborhoods aren't safe. A lot more carjacking, stuff like that. I hate watching my home state go downhill.
Very true. Hey Jen, I think that's a great idea. You should put the title on your live stream at the picnic as your wedding reception, just to mess with the trolls. I think that would be awesome. Yeah, no, the whole system is just, the entire liberal agenda is just crazy what they're doing. you know, legalizing the drugs everywhere, you know, and everything that they've done has generated more homeless and more crime, and it doesn't make sense why anybody still votes for them.
Nobody does, just Dominion.
That's true. It's probably the Dominion system that's doing the voting.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the Dominion system voting for them. They rigged the system. We just need to wake up and smell the coffee finally. America's been asleep too long.
Well, you know, every time in history that America has been awoken is, it was literally, America would be the last people to join the fight. You know, just like World War I. We were the last country to get into World War I. And it took a major assault on America to get it to happen. Same thing with World War II when you look at Pearl Harbor. Just about every time we needed the entire country to jump up and say, hey, no more. It's taken, and America has ended up being the last to enter the fight. Just like right now, this freedom movement isn't just here in the States. It's not just in Canada. It's worldwide. And yet, even now, America is still mostly dragging their feet and asleep at it.
Yeah, the only way to wake up somebody that's not asleep is from to feel pain, sadly.
Yeah, and that's coming in the form of a crushed economy. You know, the fuel price is too high, the freight rates are too low. Trucks are starting to park all over the country. And if it gets any worse, you're going to have no trucks running, and then you're going to have no grocery in the grocery stores, and people are going to start starving.
Oh yeah, and people think, oh, well, you know, that's going to take a while. I warn people, I used to deliver groceries, I already told you that. When you're delivering groceries, you come to realize those back rooms in those grocery stores are big enough for, you know, a couple pallet racks, and they basically are what's called just-in-time inventory management. I learned this when I got my bachelor's degree. It's called JIT. It basically can lower their business costs by carrying less inventory on hand, which means that for years and years and years, this JIT inventory management system is spread across the nation for groceries and other industries, but especially in the grocery industry. We have gotten to the point where there's tops 48 hours worth of food sitting in a grocery store for most things, and then maybe 72 hours for other types of food, and then when it's talking about non-perishables, you might have 4 days, and then you're completely blown dry. So I mean, in a 5-day period of time, a nation can go from being the pinnacle of a world power to being completely brought to its knees just with the food supply.
Yeah, I spent the better part of 15 years running Walmart dedicated grocery out of Grandview, Washington. And I can tell you, the Walmart grocery, they are getting the deliveries for the grocery, for every bit of the grocery, at least twice a day, every day. And if those trucks were to stop, it would only take half a day for every single bit of grocery in a Walmart to be gone.
Exactly. Well, I remember every time I delivered a Kroger load, I would be in the dock and they would be pulling the stuff off of my trailer and taking it straight to the shelf unit and stocking it in store. There was nothing in between. They were checking it in, they were adding it in inventory and putting it right on the shelf.
Yeah, there were a lot of times I'd show up and say I had a meat and produce load. They would be offloading me and taking it straight to the floor.
Yeah, typically there's nowhere else to put it. I mean, sometimes they got a little reserve freezer in some stores, but typically not. I mean, it has to go straight to the meat aisle, or it has to go straight to its aisle and stocked up, you know. I mean, it really is a serious problem, and it is pretty much the weak link in our country's, you know, is our food supply. I mean, and we're stupid, and we're really, the bigger they are, the higher they fall, right?
Yeah, well, most of the Walmart grocery stores actually have really big walk-in freezers, refrigerators, so that they can store extra, you know, a couple pallets of each thing extra. But when I was out running that, it was on a regular basis. They would pull it off my truck and take it straight to the floor, putting it in the big walk-ins, because they were running out of the stuff just as fast as it.
Exactly. Honey, local like that. I've done the DC center deliveries, but being OTR, you can understand that. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, regardless of whether you're talking Albertsons, I've delivered everything direct to the store, and I have done those, but it wasn't grocery in this case. I've done really a lot of grocery freight, and I haven't seen a store that has that bulletproof day food supply anywhere. There isn't even a mom and pop grocery store that has that. They can't afford it. They don't even have enough square footage on their land to be able to do such a thing. So it's just, I mean, if we go under, bud, it's going to be hard and fast.
Go ahead and tell these people what you feel about lumpers.
About lumpers?
Yes, about the lumpers.
Well, that's just a highly modified version of organized crime. Basically, you pull in, you check in with the guard shack at grocery stores that have lumpers. Lumpers are at distribution centers. This isn't a facility-wide thing. This isn't something you see at the grocery stores individually, but they're basically organized crime. They show up. They usually work for distribution centers that do not want to hire or manage extra employees because they're unionized. And the union has cost them too much money as it is already, so they typically third-party contract out their lumper work, which is people who unload the trailers, count the inventory, receive the BOLs, sign them, and release the trucker from the dock. And these lumpers, I mean, it's pure extortion. They can unload you at Denver Kroger, for example. They can unload you in 30 minutes, but they will make you wait for 4 hours to get into the dock, even if there's open dock doors right in front of you. And all along the way, they'll make you wait for 4 or 5 hours, then they'll put you in the dock and unload you. When you're unloaded, they'll tell you to go wait while they count everything, and they'll make sure and take 3 more hours instead of doing it in 15 minutes. And I've been away a number of years. I've warehoused inventory. I know how to count inventory, and I know it doesn't take that long. But they'll unload you in 30 minutes, and you'll know because they'll quit driving their forklift in your trailer, and you'll feel them stop, and then the light will turn green, and you'll pull off their dock to get out of a facility. And when it's all there, and they'll have signs all over there, tell you to be polite. They'll treat you like trash while you have to be polite. And if you're not, you out of the facility without any BOLs. And when they hand you your BOLs, they'll charge you $200 or $300 to unload your trailer. They did it in 30 minutes, but they make it look like they did it in 7 hours, and they'll bill you to unload one trailer. I've told so many friends that if I ran my own lumper service, I could unload a trailer in 30, 45 minutes, have it inventoried in another 15 minutes, and have it parked and set aside, and I wouldn't be interested in charging more than an hourly rate.
Hey, silly. We need to get a bride cake top Jeep to put on top of her cake. Yep. Now, is the fact that they are charging the trucker a lumper fee to unload the truck. When the company ordered the product and it's their employees or the third-party people that they have employed, the company is paying that other company or those people to unload the trucks, but those people are also turning around and in turn charging the truck driver for unloading the truck. So they're getting paid twice.
Exactly. So basically what you're saying is they work for the company that pays them, which is the distribution center, and then they're charging you to take it off your truck. And the reason why they drag their feet and take so long to unload you is to remind you that if you don't pay the lumper fees and treat them nice, that they won't unload you at all. And then they extort you for money, and if you don't pay them money, they won't give you your BOL that's signed. You can't apply to get paid for the load haul. And so it really is organized crime. I mean, it's pure flat-out criminal. And then the government backs it up by saying that truck drivers work too hard and they work too many hours, and that it's good for lumper companies to do the work for them so that the driver can rest in their truck. And so the government has all this stuff that legitimizes quality. They are really like the mafia.
Yeah, but the Supreme Court disagrees. Walmart lost that lawsuit for the use of their lumpers. That's why you go to any on the grocery side and they don't charge lumper fees anymore. They got sued over it and lost.
Wait, so Walmart wanted to keep lumpers and they got sued? Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry, I haven't tracked this story at all.
So Walmart had Capstone. Walmart was using Capstone, right? And see, here's what's stupid is the company like Walmart or like Albertsons or Safeway, they get sued, but the lumper company themselves aren't getting sued. So anyway, Walmart was using Capstone. And the reason Walmart lost the lawsuit against some of the big trucking companies was because the same guys that were sitting there charging the truck drivers to unload their trucks were also turning around and going and loading Walmart's trucks for free. In other words, not charging the truck driver of a Walmart truck. And that's how they ended up losing that lawsuit. That's what. And that's why Walmart doesn't have lumper fees at all for anything anymore.
Oh, that's some progress. That's good to hear, man. That's super wild, though. Holy smokes, I had no idea that was going on. Capstone's one of the worst anyway. Everybody hates Capstone Logistics.
Yeah, you got that right.
Folks, if you want to see if I'm joking or not, go find a local distribution center for Kroger, King Soopers, or any grocery store you can think of, and look up and see if they have a lumper or they have Capstone Logistics. But even if you don't look it up, just find the distribution center, not the grocery store, but a distribution center address. Click on it on Google Maps. Type in the address, click on it on Google Maps, and read the Google reviews, and make sure you look for the truck driver reviews. You will hear the most atrocious, absurd stories. I know people that have waited 48 hours to get unloaded on site, just to get the freight off their truck because you showed up, they made you wait in line. And when you waited in line, you were on time, but the line took so long to clear out that by the time you got checked in, you were late. Then they tell you you're late, they tell you to wait, and that you're late, and they make you wait for 48 hours sometimes to see if your truck's unloaded. And then when you finally get unloaded, they charge you $300 while they're making money on the side.
Oh, my favorite is when you show up to deliver and they say, well, you're not scheduled. You have to call your broker and reschedule the delivery, and the next appointment time's like 3 weeks out.
Yeah, and when you call them BS on it, then they just get hostile, kick you off the facility, and you have to return the load.
Last time one of them distribution centers tried to do that to me, I had a load of watermelons, and I had the broker on the phone, on speakerphone at the time, and I looked the guy straight in the face and said, buddy, if you're going to make me leave and come back 3 weeks from now, I'm not moving. I'm going to go out to the back of my truck, I'm going to open the doors, and I'm going to start throwing watermelons out. And he said, you can't do that. We'll call your company and you'll get fired. And I'm like, buddy, I am my company. And my broker, he's sitting there on the phone trying not to laugh because he knows me well enough that I'll go out there and do it. And 15 minutes later, he's getting a phone call from that distribution center because I'm out there throwing pallets and watermelons out the back of my trailer onto the ground in their parking lot. And they finally got somebody out there and says, okay, stop what you're doing, put it in this dock right here, we'll unload you right now.
Good for you, dude. You know what else they do that's totally criminal? They like to, there's a law states, according to the law about lumpers, it states that they have to give the truck driver the option to unload his load. But since COVID started, the facilities won't even let you in. And they won't even give you bathrooms. And they treat you like trash. And they make you just wait in the truck for hours and hours and hours, and you can't get in the bathroom, you can't enter the facility. But the law states that they have to give you permission to be able to. Everybody's overlooking that now, so even if you wanted to bypass the lumper and self-unload, they won't let you. Well, I've heard other truckers say that they've enforced the self-unload law. They go in there and the lumper has parked a whole bunch of stuff right in front of their dock door so they can't even unload. And then they just sit there on their forklifts and look at you and wait to see what you're going to do.
That's when the fly comes unzipped and that product that's blocking my dock starts getting wet.
You!
Needless to say, I try to avoid grocery, the lumpers and all that garbage. Showing up to some place, you've got maybe 2 to 3 hours left on your day, and you end up sitting in their dock for 6 hours. And now you're expected to leave and make it to go. Basically, they won't let you stay on their property, even though now, if you leave legally because you're outside of your hours, then they don't care.
Oh yeah, that just happened to me down in Texas. I was at an Aldi, and I was making a delivery. No, what was it? I can't remember if it was an Aldi or what. But anyway, I was at a facility, and it said they had overnight parking on Google Maps. So I pulled into their overnight parking. I pull in, I set the brake. I'm now stripped down to my boxer shorts, and I'm headed to bed. And a guard comes around in a golf cart and beats on my door, and when I roll down the window, he's like, you have to leave. He's like, well, he asked me what my appointment time was for, and I told him, and I showed him my BOL to prove I'm not just trying to use your parking and everything. So I proved him I'm a legitimate delivery. He said, 4 hours, you have to leave. I looked at him and I said, you know, you could have told me that 30 minutes ago when I first pulled in. Really clean out of hours, ironically, and I showed him my log. I said, I am completely provably out of hours, and you're illegal. Do you want to explain how you want me to do that? And he just, like, sorry, but you have to. I looked at him, I said, did you look out on the street? Parked on the shoulder right now. I said, how do you want me to find a parking spot when I'm supposed to drive illegally on roads?
No, my favorite is when they pull that kind of crap, and then you push, but they finally bring in a police officer. Usually a local police officer, like city police or something, to trespass you off or something like that. The police officer goes through his thing, and usually if it's a city cop, he doesn't know anything about the trucking industry or the rules of service or anything like that. And you're telling that officer he's got to get a state trooper out there. And you get it escalated to that point, and the state trooper will walk up to that guy, that security guard. That truck ain't moving.
Exasperated by the mall cop attitude, the Paul Blart mall cop, he's got might have a taser and not just, when in reality, he's a guy that probably has very little control over his life at all. His life's out of control, and the reason he took that job in the first place is because he feels because of his position in the first place. So Those grocery store DC guard shack guards are just as obnoxious as the stupid lumpers.
You always gotta love the rent-a-cop.
You know, when they show up at your door, you can already feel it. They've already got the tape measure out, and they want to get into it. It's constant, dude. It's just, the trucking trash lately.
Oh, that, and it's always been out there.
Oh, you're not kidding. Everybody's a liar these days.
Well, not just that, but, you know, when it comes to the financial side of things, everybody is so willing to undercut and cut each other's throats. You know, that's why we're looking at freight rates that are so low, is because you got these big companies that went in and started going to war over a bidding war over certain freight, and they end up bidding under $1 because they got enough other freight that they're doing everywhere else that they can compensate for the loss. But it's who can bid the least so that they can secure that account, and that's what's really killed it, you know.
Yep, and that all starts with the really big trucking companies like JB Hunt and Swift and stuff bidding the rates down, and it all ends with these small-time owner-operators. I believe in America being a wonderful melting pot. I know we all immigrated here at one point or another, so I have no problem with that, but the foreigners start up trucking businesses and they have no idea how to budget their business, and they run their truck into the ground running for $1.30 a mile all day long, and then when the truck quits running, they just abandon the DOT number because it probably got violations on it. They abandon the truck, they abandon the DOT number, start a new one up. It's called Chameleon Trucking Companies, where they rotate DOT numbers. They start a new DOT number and they lather, rinse, repeat, and then people wonder why there's these inexperienced foreigners running down these I-70 passes and causing those huge wrecks like happened in Floyd Hill outside of Denver. It's trucking companies that are run by foreigners, or they don't understand, and they don't run a really good, you know, operation. They don't understand how American economy works. They don't understand how the business operates, and they think they can make a living.
Yep, and everybody that thinks, okay, I got this really good load that goes here, but nothing comes out of that area that pays decent enough for me to even make a buck on. So it'll wash out because I got this really good paying load that gets me there. So now they're forced to turn around and take a cheap load coming out. Well, if they were smart, they wouldn't do that. Yeah, they take the high paying load in, but hell, why bother? Why bother picking up something that doesn't pay for the fuel? Just leave. Go deadhead 200 miles or 600 miles somewhere else for a better rate, instead of letting those people dictate the cheaper rate. Because everybody has to take a cheap rate once in a while to get to that better rate. Well, no, you don't. You could just drive to that better rate.
Exactly. Not only that, but you got a lot of these same foreigners doing what you're talking about. They end up at a dead-end place like the southern tip of Florida where there's no good freight. They're down there, and then they're like, well, shoot, what do I do? Well, then they get approached by somebody in a truck stop, and before you know it, they're getting busted by the DOT with a whole bunch of illegal immigrants in their trailer.
Yeah.
Oh, it happens, people. It happens a lot. They're doing it all the time. Laredo, Texas, all along the Texas border, Cubans, you know, I mean, it's just constant. They're getting paid $200,000 in fake money or illegal money to run 60, 80 immigrants up into Georgia or further in, you know, up into Tennessee or whatever. And they do it, and they get busted, and the DOT knows what to look for. And then they just, when they get out of prison, they just start up another Chameleon DOT, buy a $20,000 truck, and drive it into the ground again.
Yeah, they do that, you know. And the other thing is, a lot of these foreigners, they think just because the freight's there that they can just take it. Doesn't matter what it pays, because everything... Well, when they're just taking loads, and not really paying attention to what those loads pay, oftentimes they might be taking loads that pay only 60 cents a mile. And the problem with that is, when you put together the amount of the fuel cost and your insurance and plates and permits and maintenance and everything else, all your costs all together, you literally need to be around $1.80 to $2.20 a mile just to break even. You can't afford to haul that 60-cent mile a load.
That's exactly right. Most trucks, folks, cost $1 a mile just to run the diesel fuel. Just to pay for your diesel is $1 a mile. $2 a mile is your break-even point. Some trucks can do a little bit better. Mine doesn't, but he's exactly right. I mean, you really can't run for less than $2 a mile. But you guys may not realize how chronic this foreigner problem is. These people are constantly doing the most atrocious stuff. They cut holes in the floorboards of their sleepers and poop out of their sleepers onto the highway as they drive. These people are the people that you get videotape on YouTube where they drop trouser right next to their tandems in a truck stop and poop on the concrete, even though there's a toilet 50 feet away. I mean, these people, they're trash. I mean, go into a truck stop and look where the trailers back up at the back end of the parking area and walk in that grass behind where the trailers park, and you will see what kind of trash gets swept out. There'll be trash bags full of poop and bottles full of pee, and there'll be just trash piled up everywhere at these truck stops. And it's the chronic foreigner problem. They don't know how to immigrate here and then assimilate into our culture. They just do what they do and they don't adjust, and they really damaged our trucking industry hugely.
Yeah. Now that being said, though, I've had to use a bottle here and there, simply because you're sitting in a dock, still not unloaded yet, but they won't let you use the bathroom. So I keep that bottle in a trash bag here on the truck, and then I'll turn around, and when I get a chance somewhere, like if I pull into a rest area or like a dirt pull-out somewhere, I'll take that bottle out and I will dump it out over some weeds or something like that, and then I'll put the bottle in a garbage can. I don't just throw that whole bottle out there for it to sit and rot and people to trip over.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. You dispose of it properly. It's not a matter of whether or not you had to piss in a bottle or not. That's fine. I've had to do it many a time. In fact, I would rather do it many times than try to go into some of these truck stops that are lower end or whatever. But you dispose of it appropriately. You don't leave a mess. You throw stuff away. You throw away your trash. You don't sweep out. And you don't, just make a nuisance out of yourself. But these people, they'll poop in a trash bag and throw it right out their window of their truck, right in the truck stop, and it'll just be sitting there all night rotting. It's so gross. I've seen video. I've seen people drop trouser and rest their ass cheeks right against their drive tires and poop on the concrete, and then when they pull away, their trailer tires will go right over the poop and leave a shit track all the way out of the truck stop.
Well, we've already run over a few of those bags just here on the highway. I've actually seen a couple of them already today, but like I was saying though, I've seen them throw them out the window while they're driving down the highway. It's just I don't know. These people just don't seem to have a brain when it comes to that.
No, they really don't. In fact, I've talked to a lot of truck mechanics that refuse to work when they cut the hole in the floorboards of the truck so they can poop out of it. When you take a pooper, drive line and the underbelly of your transmission, and it falls all over it might spray back onto your axles and stuff, and then you got to get under there on a skateboard to work on it as a mechanic. That's just beyond vile. I mean, it's so gross. The mechanics refuse to do work on their equipment. That's another reason they're required to ground and then abandon it.
Another 3/4 miles, take exit 250A on the right to I-135 South.
One of my moderators is asking that. Well, she says, okay, that's completely disgusting. Who in the hell does that? Well, when we say it's foreigners doing it, it's not just any particular foreigners, it's usually the foreigners from the Middle Eastern countries.
Exactly. Every now and then you'll run into Soviet blocks that are kind of trashy, but generally not so much. But it's really the Middle Easterners. They show up with a whole different set of expectations. They'll sit in the fuel island and eat their lunch and block the fuel island and make you wait for 30 minutes while they take their 30-minute break and you can't get fuel. They do have a really piss-poor attitude and their behavior is bad, and they came to this country and now the land of opportunity to them, that's offered them everything, they treat it like trash. They don't appreciate what they're given. Like, we're all fighting, we're all struggling to get our word out and defend our country and defend what's right, but these people, they don't care. They've never known freedom, they don't respect it, and they're apathetic. It's like you and me. If we started truck driving in China, I would go there and immediately expect to have to learn the language and assimilate the culture. Learn what is appropriate behavior. Learn what's expected of you in your industry. Learn what is correct and right for their country. But these people are showing up here and they're doing what they want to do, and when you try to show them the right way, they become aggressive.
I've got a cousin that's a DOT officer in Washington State. He pulled over a Somalian driver in a semi-truck here, what was it, last year I think. Pulled him over, asked for his driver's, for his license, you know. The kid reaches out the window, hands him this license, and he says he looks up at him, looks at the license, and it's not the same guy. And there was such a language barrier, the kid didn't understand. Well, come to find out, after they got like 15 some odd officers on the scene and everything else, it was 5 brothers, all in the truck at the same time. One of them has a CDL, the rest of them do not, but they're all sitting there taking turns because they thought that all they needed was one CDL for all of them to drive that truck.
Oh my word, that sounds so classic. You can see them at the truck stop. Sometimes they unload their whole family. I mean, probably like 6 to 8 people in a sleeper berth. It's unbelievable. Not that I have a problem with that. I mean, like, sometimes I take my wife and kids on a trip and like, oh, we're going to go down to the beach and we're going to run a load just so we can make money on our vacation or whatever. But, I mean, when you combine the fact that there's 8 of them in that truck and they're all acting trashy, they're all pooping on the tandems and on the concrete and the truck stops, and they're throwing their trash out the windows and stuff. And in every furnished truck, and you got a big problem.
We're in Salina. What are we talking about, guys? Did you hear about Jen's wedding? Oh no. You realize every time somebody talks about Jen on any live stream, Jen's phone starts blowing up from people that know her. She gets it's not just her phone, not just her text, but her Facebook starts blowing up. All of her other social media starts blowing up. I don't think Jen really needs that kind of headache, guys. Oh, look. Go around here in quite a while because they still got some of them really. Oh, Jason, you're just messing with her. Oh, really? I'm in Salina. How come it says I don't have a signal? YouTube doesn't like me. And we're coming up on that interstate battery on the left here soon.
How about you? Coming up on the operation. What are you talking about?
I didn't catch that. You broke up pretty good. Must be a little too much distance between us and maybe a truck or two.
Yeah. You said there's an interstate battery operation up ahead. I don't know what you're talking about.
Alright, I turned my squelch down. You're coming in much better now. Now the battery interstate that makes car batteries, their manufacturing is over here in Salina, off to the left. I've been to them a couple of times over my many years out here, and usually they're really nice people. But this last time, especially during COVID, they got this security guard that was just a complete... let me just say, I will never go back.
Yeah, people don't realize how much security guards and lumbers affect the front of the business and the way that it works. There's a lot of DC centers and shippers that don't realize that there's a lot of trucking companies, small-time, high-quality shippers that won't work with that company anymore. And then that forces them to pay more in order to be able to fulfill their loads, but realize it.
Yeah, small water guy. Go ahead, wear a disguise. All I gotta do is look for the fake mustache. That old cheesy 1970s porno mustache. We'll find you real easy. Oh, let's see. Well, how long have I got to be in this construction? When was the last time you came down through here? Do you have any idea how long this construction zone is?
I don't. So, yeah, we're in a journey of discovery together, brother. And I'm stuck behind a really pokey driver.
Well, I can still see you back. I don't know which truck you're stuck behind. That's one of the reasons I flew around that truck in the first place, because I knew when I saw them cones coming up, I knew that we were going to end up stuck behind a slowpoke if I didn't. I just thought you came out around him too.
Now this guy's slow enough, I could take an off-ramp and burn through the stop signs and beat him to the top of the next side.
Yeah, don't do that though. Don't do that.
I won't, I was just joking, but Holy smokes, he seems like he really is that.
Yeah, sure, they do a construction like what they're doing here, you know, get you blocked down to one lane because they're working on the other lane, but they don't change the speed limit. If the speed limit is 75 miles an hour before the construction zone, it stays 75 miles an hour all the way through the construction zone. Because they make sure that they cone you off far enough away that you're not anywhere.
Exactly, and they also know and understand that the thing that causes most wrecks is actually the changes in speed differential, whereas apparently the FMCSA doesn't understand that because they're talking about governing us. But yeah, it's basically not being causes a lot of wrecks. You get to these contention and they're not in it yet, and they drive right up to the face of the construction site and rear end somebody going 75 miles an hour because the traffic's restricted down to 55.
Yeah, that's why they have so many more deadly accidents in places like California when it's car. Much more random. Not because there's more people. In fact, that the speed limit in California for cars is 70, and the cops don't pull them over until they're yet a semi-truck has a separate speed limit in California of 55 miles an hour, and a cop will pull that semi-truck over if he's doing 62.
Even though you and I both know the guy doing 90 will weave in and out of traffic, and he'll slide over to the far right lane where the semis are, and he'll be on his phone, and he'll rear end some truck, and then suddenly it's the truck's fault.
Yep, and that right there is that speed differential. California has far more accidents